The Waterworks incident. Let's take a look at this bizarre event, tonight, on Project Algerine. Every once in a while, you come across a story in Erie's history that seems as though it could have been ripped directly out of a Hollywood movie. This next story is no different. The events that transpired here on that evening of July of 1966 quickly escalated to involve local, state, and federal authorities, including 2 countries and multiple United States Air Force bases. The country was put on high alert. Many of the records of what happened that night were determined to be classified and were unavailable to the public for many years. Up until now, it has only been known as case number 10,798. After tonight it will be known as the Waterworks incident. Our story begins in the early evening hours of July 31, 1966. Our location is a beach on Presque Isle State Park, in an area known as Waterworks Beach. That evening, 24-year-old Betty Fisher arrives at the park with her boyfriend, Douglas Timmons. They are accompanied by another couple, Jerry Cooper and Misty Hayes, and were reportedly going to enjoy a picnic on the beach, using the car's headlights after sunset. As Timmons pulls his car closer to the table, the picnic is cut short when his car becomes stuck in the sand. After attempts to free the car are unsuccessful, Cooper takes it upon himself to go for help. Minutes later, Betty notices a strange light-off in the distance, and brings it to the attention of Douglas. Misty apparently had an obstructed view from the backseat, while the couple described to her what they saw. As the light moves closer, Betty is terrified. Seconds later, Cooper arrives with the park police. Feeling confident with the police present, Timmons goes off to investigate where they saw the lights. Betty is still in the car, and is suddenly startled by what can only be described as a large monster appearing directly in front of the car. In a panic, she honks the car's horn, and the monster scurries away. It was at this point that Betty tells Misty, "Don't look at the monster," and instructs her to run towards the police car. Timmons has made his way to where he believes the craft has landed. He reportedly heard branches breaking in a small wooded area between the road and the beach. As the sound of the branches breaking is quickly getting closer, Timmons makes a run for the police car. Everyone packed into the police car as it sped off towards the park office. Nobody knew that their lives were all about to change. By the next morning, reports of the strange sighting had reached officials at the United States Air Force Base in Youngstown, Ohio. The top military officials at the base quickly met to discuss the situation back in Erie. It was immediately determined that a further investigation would be required. Major William Hall and his team were dispatched to Erie to begin their investigation. Upon arriving in Erie, the men were taken to the area where the incident had occurred to begin their investigation. Plaster cast molds were made from the impressions left by what was believed to be a spacecraft and footprints from the monster. Major Hall had his team test the entire beach for both gamma and beta radiation. Soil samples were recovered from multiple locations, and the entire beach was combed for clues. Once the local media caught wind of the story, it became an international incident, even attracting UFO groups from around the country. The government took this incident extremely serious. The timing of this event played a key role. NASA's Gemini 10 had splashed down just 10 days prior, and was slated for 2 more missions in the coming weeks. There was some talk at the time that this incident could potentially delay the space program, and the United States would miss its goal of landing a man on the moon by the end of the decade. By August 3, officials in Niagara Falls, New York, were being briefed on the situation. The investigation is being turned over to Captain Harry Meyer. Captain Meyer and the rest of his team make their way to Erie. Continuing where the previous team left off, more data is collected from the site. But the city of Erie suddenly had a problem on its hands. The entire town seemed to have flying saucer fever. Reports were coming in from all over town about these strange and unidentified objects. At one point, it got so bad that people stopped visiting Presque Isle, until officials there released a statement saying the park was indeed safe. Captain Meyer makes his way to Jamestown, New York, a small town southeast of Erie, where Betty Fisher resides. The captain noted that Betty had grown up her entire life here, and was well respected by the community. Upon questioning Betty, Meyer found her responses to be genuine and sincere. Timmons, on the other hand, seemed to waver, and seemed to change little parts of the story each time it was retold. By this time, Timmons was also doing press interviews, and was even interviewed on a local television news show, which in the end hurt his credibility. While Timmons was enjoying his new fame, the interviews continued with Misty Hayes, who appeared uninterested and indifferent during questioning. Cooper, who wasn't even present for much of the events that night, now believes he too may have seen the monster. With the investigation nearing completion, things around Erie begin to quiet down. For now. Now, thanks to the Freedom of Information Act, we can finally get a look at what the government believed to have happened that fateful night on Presque Isle, 56 years ago. After all the collected evidence had been examined in Ohio, it was determined by Staff Sergeant Earl Schroeder that the incident at Waterworks Beach was most likely a hoax concocted by Douglas Timmons and Betty Fisher. Schroeder's main piece of evidence is the July 28 edition of TV Guide, which shows an episode of Lost in Space, which just happened to air on the local TV station. The plot of that episode was eerily similar to the events that transpired on that beach, even down to the description of the monster. It's believed Jerry Cooper never really witnessed anything, but went along with the hoax. Somehow Misty Hayes became an unwitting accomplice to the incident. An early report showed that the food from the picnic table had been moved by an animal sometime during the night. This led Schroeder to assume the monster that ran in front of the car might have been a large bear. He believed this would also account for the branches snapping in the woods as the bear was drawn to the food. One thing that our researchers discovered that the government didn't was on the exact same night of these bizarre events, at that exact time on the clock, CBS was airing a special news program to citizens of Erie and the world. The title of the show was UFOs, Friend, Foe, or Fantasy. This most likely helped contribute to the mass sightings in the area around that time. As Schroeder's report came to a close, he noted that Betty's testimony did in fact seem credible. You've been watching the Waterworks incident on Project Algerine.